everybody. I'm Kim Heil, Associate Artistic Director of the Old Globe. Welcome to tonight's Insight Seminar for our brand new musical, Huzzah. And we have with us tonight a real treat. To my left are the writers of this original musical, Nell Benjamin and Larry O'Keefe.
You haven't seen it yet. You don't have to applaud yet. We haven't earned it. We hope to. Thank you, though.
I just want to say that Larry mentioned how wonderful the San Diego audiences and the Old Globe community has been, and including all of you. Thank you for continuing to attend the Insight seminars and supporting live theater. I know that many of you have been with the Old Globe for many years because I've been with the Old Globe many years, and I remember when we were hanging out just like this, maybe close to 15 years ago, and a lot of you were around then too, and I'm just delighted to be able to continue to share these interviews with you all. They're so special to me. I know they're special to you. I also want to thank Carl and Vicki Zeiger for continuing to support this program. I don't see them in the audience, but yes, thank you. We should always thank them for their support of this, and it means a lot to us that we can continue to have these conversations with these fabulous artists for all of you. So, you all know I get so excited up here. Tonight I am just as excited, if not more. Now, I just want to preface by saying that this is, to my left, musical theater royalty, and I'll tell you how I know this. So my children are teenagers, and they are, so Gen Z, I guess. I'm Gen X. And proudly Gen X, and I have been a fan of Larry and Nell's work for many, many years, actually since 3. Remember 3?
Yes.
Yeah,
oh
crazy,
my gosh.
right? That was like 2000?
2000.
So there you go. So I've been a fan for a very long time, like a literal fangirl for many, many years. And then I introduced them to my children, who are also theater kids. They love musical theater. They listen to all the, hot new shows, and they know who all these hot new actors are, and they love hearing about, mom's work at the Old Globe, but they also kind of think I'm a geek, so, I'm not always that cool. But when I introduced my son to these two people, of course, he didn't know them by sight because, we see their names. We don't always see their photos. And and then they were so kind. They introduced themselves. They said hello, and then they left and went back into the theater. And my son, who is 17, said to me, "Who are they?" And I said, "Well, they wrote." And then I listed what they had written. And pardon me if I can swear for a minute, but he said, "Oh, shit." And Mom was suddenly really cool.
Mom's already cool.
So we're talking about intergenerational fame here, and so that's actually very quite an accomplishment. So among some of the shows that you may have heard of that Larry and Nell have worked on, Legally Blonde, the musical, is the one show. Yes, applaud for sure. Is the one that you two previously partnered on, and then. Nell actually was here at the Old Globe in 2022 for Come Fall in Love. She was a book writer for
So
that.
jealous.
Fabulous show.
That was great.
Larry has a show off Broadway right now. It's the revival of the musical Heathers, which is a huge hit based on the movie. Nell has also worked on Mean Girls, which is the Tina Fey movie on Broadway.
Also so jealous.
And also Real Women Have Curves, which was recently on Broadway. Yes. And Larry also, he has written Bat Boy the Musical, which is a real cult favorite. You talk to any theater, diehard theater fan, they are followers of Bat Boy. Also, there's going to be encores this
Yeah, it's at
fall.
Encores starting October 29th.
That is so exciting. So we're talking, I said musical theater royalty, I'm not kidding. But I want to take it back to the beginning and ask, because the two of you, if it's not obvious by now, they are married.
It's true.
Now you're jealous.
tell me, I want to take it back actually before you met, because, we don't always, we have directors up here, we do have writers. I don't know that I've had a musical theater book writer up here. So I'm curious now, what started your work in the theater?
Oh, that's an interesting question. I loved to write. I always loved to write. I didn't think you could make a living at it, and so I never tried for a very long time.
Can you make a living?
Yeah. So I think in terms of writing, I wrote stuff at school. I basically, my philosophy is just write all the time, never look at a blank page. So, at school, I wrote a soap opera for my classmates that they were all in, and then I wrote things for myself, but again, didn't think I would write, professionally. When I worked for Swiss Bank Corporation on their derivatives trading desk out of school. And they were like, we need someone to write a corporate bond trading procedures manual. I'm like, I got it. I got you. And so I would go into my boss's office, and I'm like, here's how I'm thinking it's going to go, and here's what it is. And he's like, no one's ever going to read it. He's like, we have this thing so that if someone does something wrong and the SEC comes to us and says someone's something wrong, we can say, well, our rules were very clear in the manual, so they're your problem, not us. Don't sue. And I was like, I still got it. It's like, I still got this. And to this day, I think it's still there, and there is a limerick in the middle of it about Moody credit ratings, which I don't remember, but I know it's there, and I know no one's read it because no one's ever talked to me about that. And I wrote a newsletter at the agency I worked at. I was just sort of desperate to write, but meeting Larry in college was when someone was like, "Yeah, you could do this," and so our first show that we wrote together was, in fact, in college. And that was sort of the beginning of like, oh, maybe this is a thing.
Well, I want to get to Larry's origin story too, but take me to that moment when you first met.
Let's see. All right.
Shall we do it? Just get it over with?
Shall we do it? Let's
All
do
right.
it. The
right.
official story is.
We were thrown together to audition as a pair for the improv comedy group at college. I was a junior. She was a freshman. It was probably your fourth or fifth day as a student.
Yep.
And I didn't want to audition for this group anymore because I tried and failed many times, but it was 11:55 and the place was about to close, and Michelle Hainer, manning the desk, said, "Can you please help this young freshman audition?" I was like, okay, fine. And I was like, yes, I will. So they threw us together in the improv comedy group for On Thin Ice is the name of the group, and they got us on stage and they said, okay, Nell, you are Jane Goodall, the primatologist who works with apes in the rainforest, and Larry, you are a gorilla. So once you have picked the fleas out of each other's fur, the ice is broken. Yeah. It went great. We got along. I shook her hand. I said, good night, have a good night. And then I was like, yeah, I have to break up with my girlfriend. So the next day, I got the courage up. I did it. And then I was like, and now I will date nobody to help clear my head. But we kept running into each other.
Because I was stalking you.
Yeah, she was stalking. This was in the days before GPS and texting, so it was all analog stalking, and it was very impressive. You just used a map of the campus.
I did,
and
I stood outside the door to the dining hall of your dorm.
And this is Harvard, yes?
This is Harvard, yeah. So
we should mention, we went to Harvard.
Yeah. God, have we not mentioned that yet?
Damn, we're late.
I was waiting.
Okay.
I'm sorry, we're contractually obligated to always mention that within the first 30 seconds of meeting us. So I stood outside there looking at a light post with like those ads, like Dan Smith will teach you guitar. Like I was really interested. I'm like, puppies? That's great. And
eventually our mutual friends sort of realized that this was a good idea, and they sort of shoved us together, and then we started dating. But then it took us a year or two before we wrote together, and then we wrote for the drag show. The Hasty Pudding Theatricals is the oldest theatrical organization in the U.S., and it's an original show written by undergrads, choreographed sometimes orchestrated, composed by and performed by undergrads, and it's an amazing boot camp. 8 shows a week for a professional schedule, for a bunch of weeks in Boston, then a tour to New York City, then a tour to Bermuda. So yeah, a fun gig. And so we eventually won the job of writing the show together. We wrote the book and lyrics. A wonderful friend of ours, Edwin Outwater, wrote the music, and then we're like, oh, we have a credit. We don't want to go back and look at it now.
Like, little tiny sidebar, I think Edwin's actually conducted the San Diego Symphony.
Oh, that's right, he has. Edwin Outwater, he's a wonderful conductor now.
Yeah.
He's wonderful. The upshot of it is, our theatrical behavior was very intertwined immediately with our theatrical dating.
Yes, that's fun.
All drama all the time.
So lovely. Okay, well, so Larry, how did you fall into music?
I don't know. There was a piano in the house. It was mostly broken. The pedal didn't work. We didn't really have money for like things like tuning it. But I was banging on it all the time. Took some lessons. Couldn't figure it out. Couldn't read the music very easily. Gave up the lessons, but kept banging on the piano. One day, I was listening to the radio, and it was Billy Joel's Piano Man. I was like, wait a minute, that's all white keys. And so I played along, and it was very easy. I was like, wait a minute. So I began to teach myself sort of like from inside the mind of a composer instead of the intermediary of the sheet music, because I was dyslexic enough that sheet music sight reading was really, really hard and slow for me. But if you found a different way, I think I was accidentally recapitulating the Suzuki method without paying for lessons, so that was good. So did theater, did acting, and then was writing songs, all through high school, and they were terrible. And you do it a little more, and then the Hasty Pudding Show offered an opportunity to audition for the job of composing. It was a comp, and they said, you don't really need to know how to write things down. Just write a lead sheet. Just write the lyrics and the chords. And I was like, I can do. So that's how I got into that. Then we wrote the show together, and then I graduated and realized, oops, I could have got a music degree, and I didn't. I studied anthropology. That was in maybe in some ways studying human behavior, not a bad idea, but not very efficient if your goal is to, write music. So then I went to Berklee College of Music for 1 year, and then I went to USC in LA for 1 year for their film scoring program. I'm going to be a film composer, and then I realized I don't want to be a film composer. It's a power thing, because film composition is an incredible, brilliant art. It's a great craft, and it's also in the background. Most of the time, the music in a movie or a TV show is designed to be felt more than heard, and you're like writing little tiny pieces, 15 seconds, 30 seconds. And I was like, I want to be in the spotlight. I don't want to be, Carter Burwell for the Coen brothers. I don't want to be Mark Mancina working for Hans Zimmer, working for Christopher Nolan. I want to be Alan Menken. I want to be Stephen Sondheim. So I went out to L.A. to score films, and instead wound up doing theater in L.A.
Film's loss is theater's gain.
Well, thank you. But eventually, we stuck it out there long enough to realize, yes, this is, LA's not the town for us. And so we wound up getting gigs in theater towns in New York, and then eventually here.
Welcome back to the West Coast.
Oh,
Wait, so Nell, what were you studying at Harvard?
I was classics, and then my professor who was 100, had to take a leave of absence for his health, and so I switched to English halfway through. And had a very entertaining meeting with the English department where I tried to explain to them that I think the Iliad classes that I took should count towards English. I mean, it seems like there's overlap there. And so as I was arguing that, I'm like, please, because I can't afford to stay an extra year. So, so it was not only a great education in both classics and English, but also persuasive speaking.
Meanwhile, the anthropology department was like, Shakespeare, that counts.
Everything
Sure.
counted for him.
It was so
Classes
easy.
I took counted for him. And then English is like, this Odyssey, it's never going to last.
Wait, so it wasn't obvious then, this musical collaboration was not apparent in the beginning of your dating life, it seems.
Well, I had already seen her be the funniest person on any stage, and the best actress on any stage, and the funniest person in life. So it was in the air.
Okay.
And
We
so
have, I think, a similar sense of humor. Like, you're the funniest person I know, too. So I think that makes collaboration more easy, because you're like, we're pitching each other all the time jokes. And if, like, they're that funny. We put them on paper.
Try.
Wait, so is that how it started then? Did someone say to you, you know, it'd be a really great musical, Legally Blonde, or I guess, or The Mice, or you know, like what was the first thing that you were like, okay, we're gonna do this. We're gonna actually write a show.
Wow.
Would it have been The Mice, do you think? I mean, it might have been you, but you were writing Bad Boy before I was writing. Again, remember that I did not think you could make a living, so there I am at my bank.
Right, but at the same time, she also got hired to write for sitcoms and was a comedy writer out in L.A. in the writers' rooms, which is a very, actually, shockingly useful skill for writing for theater. Stephen Sondheim, famously, one of his first jobs out of college was writing for Topper, a TV sitcom in the 1950s, and it just taught him economy and speed and punchiness, and we're like, well done.
Yeah. I will say the great thing about working in a TV writer's room, and this is something that was further reinforced when I worked with Tina Fey, is that you just have to keep coming up with stuff. Theater can sometimes be like, this is my vision, and I'm very precious, and I don't need to change it because I'm a theater writer, and it's great. And that's a really tricky place to be in because theater is really collaborative, and a lot of people are like, it's not that great, or it's great, but not for this. You know, we've all, if you work in musical theater, you've had the experience of writing a song that is a fine, great song, but it's not the song for this moment, and you have to be ready to be like, fine, I throw it out and start again. And especially with writing, with music, it's a little easier because you could put the tune in your trunk and it'll come out again at some point. With lyrics, chances are the Mean Girls lyrics will not go to your, to your Renaissance Faire lyric. But you still have to say, and actually to praise Tina Fey, which I don't need to do because we hopefully all have the same feeling about her because she's amazing. She was always that way. She's like, there's always another joke, there's always another line, and I think that was the key. I worked in a TV writer's room where the executive producer was also the guy running the room. There wasn't middle management, there was just him. And you would just throw stuff out until he laughed and wrote it down. And if you didn't laugh and wrote it down, you were gonna still be there until someone said something funny. And that was like, okay, we'll keep going, we'll keep going, we'll keep going. It has, however, taken a bit of the filter away from my brain to my mouth. And this can be very dangerous. So the fact that your son didn't recognize me is good because I don't want to be out there speaking like this. You know, this is a very nerve-wracking thing. I don't know what is going to come out. So I apologize.
I'm very excited.
Okay, so maybe let's take it back to Legally Blonde then, because that, put your partnership on the musical theater map, so to speak. How did that project come about?
We were invited to audition for the job, I guess. Yeah. Because the tradition of Broadway that we've all seen or grown up with or heard of is writers with a dream walk into a producer's office, bang on their piano, and try to convince the producer to say, "You got what it takes, kid." And that doesn't really happen. What really happens now is producers on Broadway watch movies, and then they say that movie could come to Broadway. And so they go to the Hollywood studio and they get the rights for it, and then they say, well, who will write this thing for us? And I think probably for the last 25 years, most Broadway shows that aren't done by celebrities are done by audition. So writing teams will often, put in for the job. And so we were one of the teams that was invited to put in for the job and write demos and audition for the job of Legally Blonde. And somehow we got it. We were very lucky about that. Oh, we were also very, very lucky that Mark Shaman was busy.
Yeah.
Because the director, Jerry Mitchell, had worked with Jack O'Brien on Hairspray. And the composer for Hairspray was Mark Shaman. So he kept going to Mark Shaman and saying, please, please, will you come and do Legally Blonde? Long after we were hired and already working on it.
Like,
so
please get these people out of my face.
So we owe our careers to Mark Shaman's busy schedule.
So by now, because of the success of Legally Blonde, I mean, a huge, huge success, international success, my guess is you don't have to audition for gigs anymore?
No, sometimes you still do. I think that, a sort of a sidebar, the biggest sea change for us is we are very, very lucky in that a lot of people do come with their movies and say, hey, do you want to do this? Do you want to do that? Thank God. Mean Girls came and said, like, we're looking. But I had to audition for Mean Girls. There were other lyricists that they were looking at. So that's, they liked the work on Legally Blonde, so that helped me. But I'm sure I was up against a bunch of people. And I'm always prepared to be up against a bunch of people. But the fun part now is that I might still have to audition, but also there are, when you write something original, that's much harder to move anywhere. Because if you're a movie producer, you're like, of course you're going to go see Mean Girls. Who wouldn't go see Mean Girls the musical if they loved it? It's sort of pre-sold to them. But some original story about a Renaissance fair, what is that? Like, how are we going to get people in the theater? So when producers like ours, no guarantees, and a place like the Old Globe is like, we will roll the dice on you, it is fantastic. I want to thank everybody here tonight for making the Old Globe possible, which makes our dream of doing an original musical possible, because that is what we want to do. And
You've told this story of, I think it's in the program. I think you also told the newspaper, but I want to go back to it.
I only have so many stories.
I mean, this one is a good one. It's that you had friends in LA saying, you better go to this Ren Faire and, check out all the people there. And you guys went and were so impressed. So tell us what happened.
Well, we were in our early 20s out in LA for the first time together. And we had some fun, snarky people working in Hollywood who were like, oh, there's this hilarious thing, you have to go. It's outside San Bernardino. It's called the Renaissance Faire, and everyone dresses up in medieval things. It's so stupid, you're going to laugh your ass off. Maybe you could make it into some kind of sitcom. We said, great, let's do maybe like The Office, about people who hate their jobs, only they're dressed up as jesters and knights. Great, let's do that. So we went there, and we went looking for the dumb stuff, and there was no dumb stuff. It was all great, fun people who were both dedicated and yet had a great tongue-in-cheek attitude. It was people who had skills. They made things with their hands. Sometimes they made like plastic fairy wings with their hands, but sometimes they made actual metal swords in an actual blacksmith's forge using 10,000-year-old methods, and that was badass. There were live horses, live jousting, and we just thought this was fantastic. What a great, wonderful, productive way to waste a weekend.
And there were people too there were people who worked there. There were people who had joined guilds, so they'd be part of a guild and they'd come in costume. And then there were people who were just coming to the fair. They did not work there. They were not paid by this place, and they're fully in costume. Some of them are dressed as Oberon. One of them is a centaur dragging half a horse behind him on a little dolly.
One of them was Leonardo da Vinci wearing some kind of flapping machine on him.
Yeah. Or people in like perfect Renaissance garb that they had really painstakingly done. And these are people, we are unrepentant nerds.
These people were called...
I can speak at length about things no one wants to hear about but me.
We'll find people who will listen to the fair.
But yeah. And part of the show you're going to see tonight is a love letter to people like that who have their weird little obsessions and they find their people.
And the people who go to this fair dressed in some amazing costume and they're not making money off of it, they're spending money to be there among their people. They're called patrons. And
that's not a term that you guys made up. That's a real thing.
No, that's real. They're
thing.
called patrons, and I am a proud patron. And if you come to opening night in 2 days, you'll see me there in my doublet. I don't know if they'll let me bring my assassin's knives.
Maybe not that.
Okay,
I think there's a notice you're not allowed to bring weaponry.
Fine.
But
Okay, so you go to the Ren Faire.
Yes.
You are absolutely just blown away by the people, by the environment, and the love that's surrounding you. Do you turn to each other and say, let's write a show?
I think we probably went to 3 fairs before we said, wait a minute, this could be a show of a different kind, because we were letting go of the making fun of it idea gradually. And then I think by the 3rd, we're like, well, actually, we could write a story about these fairs. We researched them and discovered that so many of these fairs began as a benefit or a mom and pop operation. I think the first Ren Faire began in 1961 or so, and it was a benefit for a radio station in Santa Monica. And it was people who said, well, I sew costumes. Another person said, well, I cook Turkish food. Another person said, well, I make, I have a horse. So they put together a fair, and then
it sort of started with a teacher in Laurel Canyon, and she wanted to do a fundraiser for the local public radio station. And she had been a teacher, she'd been a drama teacher, and they'd come up with like one of those Renaissance sort of wagon stages, I don't know. And so she said, we could do this, we could do a fair, we could get people we know who do crafts and stuff. And they benefited from the Hollywood blacklist. There were a lot of people in Laurel Canyon whose skills were not being used because they could not work in the industry. So they were not writing, they were not painting sets, they were not making costumes. And they're like, we have free time. And so the first fair, they were expecting, I think, maybe 500 people, and they got like 5,000. And that was sort of the first fair. And it sort of grows up with sort of the counterculture. And what it is now when you go is just all different kinds of people from all different political stripes, identity stripes, all kinds of things. And they come together, and it's pretty spectacular because they've decided to come together for their. This is the joy of the fair for us, which is sort of the joy of our musical, is everybody wants to do their own thing, right? Like, that's America. You do your own thing. But we have to do it as a community. That's the only way it works. So that's the tension that we saw at the fair. They're getting it right. And we want to get it right too.
So then, fast forward to, well, I saw a workshop of this last year, and by then, obviously, you'd been working on it for some time. Walk us through what it looks like between your two brains creating this piece of theater. What is that? Is he at the piano and you're at your laptop and you're just, throwing stuff at each other?
Well, yeah, we are definitely
We
throwing
only
stuff at
throw
each other.
stuff at each other when we're fighting.
When we disagree.
I would like to make that very clear. It's
Well,
never
sometimes
unprovoked.
When we had an infant, we threw the baby at each other.
We did throw the baby at each other. You take her!
It's baby throwing time. But we do have a sort of a workflow, which is that we are both, we both share book music and lyrics. But I'd say a lot of the initiation, a lot of the start begins with Nell, where we'll talk about who the characters are, what they're basically doing, what the tone of the piece is, what we're hoping to achieve. But then story beats, character descriptions sometimes. Certainly the scenes that start, that's you. The stabs at dialogue, that's you. But then I start meddling with the dialogue, and then we're shaping it, and we say, well, maybe we put that scene later. Maybe we make this person do a different response than what we wrote. And then I'm meddling with that. And then we start to write lyrics, and then we really start competing, because I want to be the one to have the great lyric for the great song. She's usually the one who's like, well, that's the wrong lyric for the wrong song, but it might be right if you put it in Act 2. And I'm like, don't tell me what to do.
And then you start throwing stuff.
The throwing does begin. It's mostly pillows. And then sometimes you'll take a piece of dialogue and you'll say, well, that feels really fun and pithy. Maybe that's the title of a song. Suddenly we cannibalize it and turn it into a song, or maybe a lyric from a song. And then you write verse 1 and maybe a chorus 1, and maybe that suggests a melody. And then you're writing a melody and you're like, well, that's a pretty good melody. So now what's verse 2? What's chorus 2? What's the new idea? Because if we don't have a new idea, then your song consists of one verse and one chorus, and you're done. And so it's a back and forth. The end product does often tend to, the sheet music does tend to be done by me, but we're meddling with each other's business from beginning to end.
Yeah. Go ahead. No, that's exactly how it happens. Yeah, and we're deeply competitive. So sometimes, like, I'll do a draft of a lyric and you'll take it and you'll change almost all of it, and I'm like, damn it, it's better. Now I've got to be better than this. And so we're like constantly doing that. But where I think we get lucky working in musical theater is that we were like, I saw a lot of musicals growing up, but I was not sort of like, oh, the golden age of musicals. That was not, I wasn't raised on that, on Carousel, on Brigadoon, all those things. And
We
so,
saw them, we loved them, but that wasn't what we
except
immediately thought to try to recreate in our lives.
Right. But we were raised on movies, and movies particularly, they just move forward. One of the things I remember liking about movies is you get dropped in the action right away and off you go. And so rather than here's your traditional opening number that sets us all up, or a number about emotions that we've just seen displayed in the scene before, we tend to keep moving. So he really means it. If our verse and chorus 2 is not the next part of a moving thought from verse and chorus 1, we won't write a verse and chorus 2 because we, a song where it's like, you left me and I'm very sad. There's verse 1, and the chorus is very, 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 very sad. And then verse 2 is like, I'm still sad.
Yeah.
In
so
ways
good.
I will describe more further to you. It's like that.
Now, pop
makes
songs
it
can
rich.
get away with that. Often if they have
course,
a great,
yeah.
hook or a great beat or something you can dance to, then you can return to it. Famously, I Will Survive, amazing song, and it does repeat itself. There's, I think famously, verse 2 of I Will Survive, no one can remember it.
No,
Like
try
you-
this experiment.
yeah, what is
Like, don't
verse
put
2
the
of-
lyrics up at
Yeah.
karaoke and watch everybody get through that first verse and chorus, every word, and then
Yeah.
watch them struggle with the second one, right? Like nobody
yeah.
forgets. I could have changed that. I should have changed that stupid line.
Right, yeah.
I should have. Right? No one forgets that. But
It took all the strength I had not to fall apart. Kept working, trying hard to
Mend the pieces of my broken heart.
But
Yeah.
like, not to take anything away from that song. That song is an amazing pop song and a great show tune. It has drive, it has character, it has plot, it has before, beginning, it has beginning, middle, and end.
And we stole the violins for Legally Blonde.
That's true. we did,
remix.
Yeah. True. But in other words, we're stealing from everybody. We were raised on disco. We were raised on hip hop. We were raised on Star Wars. And we were raised on action movies. And so sometimes we like to say our songs are like the car chases in action movies, where it's, visual thrills or, fun special effects, but also ideally that guy is racing that car in order to
Get
save
somewhere.
the day or get away from the cops. And so we like to keep our plot moving during our songs. So hope you keep up. hope we don't like bore you, because like too much frenzy, too much churn can be boring too. But that's why we love these previews, because you guys have been telling us what works and what we need more of. In fact, fun fact, tonight there is a brand new lyric going into a song in Act 2. So this is a world premiere for you. You are seeing the world premiere of the newest version of Huzzah, partly because a song was not doing everything we just said we want to do.
Yeah.
We want things to change. We want clarity. We want plot movement inside the song, but not too much. So we have, for you, we have created a brand new version of a song which we love and have had for years.
Which the actor got like 3 hours ago. So
And-
we're not sure what's going to come
He
out
might
of
remember
their
it.
mouth.
It might be a Franken song between this new version and the old one.
And then we might rewrite it to
Yes.
reflect that. We're
Yes.
like, oh, that's good. That's what he
That's it.
remembered. Let's
But
put that
he,
in.
he might just stop and say, "Damn it, Larry! Damn it, Nell!" So
That
wish
might
us
give
luck.
it away, yeah. But I'm sorry if this is creepy, but we are watching you in the preview period. We are watching the audience. We are looking for you to go from very polite to this, or like check your program a little bit. And it's like, check the
Yeah.
program. What do you need to know that's not in this show? Like, we want you on the ride with us, and this is so helpful. And like Kim said, this is the audience we want. I'm thrilled, by the way. I was thrilled to be here for Come Fall in Love. You guys know theater. You appreciate it. And you're a sophisticated. Sorry, I'm kind of kissing your butts. I don't mean to do that.
We like that.
But I mean it. Like, this is the place to go to find out, does this work for people who like theater, or have you bored even the people who like theater? And or are they getting the jokes that we're getting out there? Are they bored by the simplicity of this, or are they confused by the complexity of that? You always know what the scene is saying as the writer because you wrote it. You're like, I know what I meant. But communication is about making sure you know what I meant. Yeah.
I know that we will have some questions in the audience, but I do have one more thing I want to ask you all, because I had the privilege, and they all know that I am in charge of the casting here at the Old Globe, and so I have the privilege of being in the casting process with the writers. And one of the things I noticed when we were seeing people was that there was, how do I say this? You write for singers, because the songs that you have are sung so beautifully, and they're not easy songs. So the people that we have are very skilled, and I know what you all were looking for in the room when we were auditioning folks. How did you develop that sensibility? And I'm guessing, are the two of you singers, or do you consider yourselves singers?
if I had been a good singer, I might have tried to make it on Broadway, and luckily I'm not. I mean, I like being musical and you say I'm a decent singer. I know
great singer.
I ain't ready for Broadway, but having done it and having done it in college and maybe a little bit outside, I got to know what the good singers do, and I also saw songs where the good singers don't get to breathe because there's too many words or too many syllables, and or a jump from too low to too high, what that does to a singer. And so I've we've together sort of learned to try to tailor it to what human voices do. One of my favorite things is this show has some pop, but everyone's trying to sing really well. One of my first shows I did in college was Jesus Christ Superstar, which skewed me going, oh, guys can sing that high? Great. I guess they should do it all the time. I learned not to do that. I learned to stop doing that because I didn't want people to get sick all the time. But this show, although there is some pop, it does reward the good skills, which is not supposed to sound operatic. It's supposed to sound just sort of well produced and well maintained and sustainable for 8 shows a week.
So when you write a song, are you hearing someone else's voice when you're, playing it?
Oh,
I mean, I'm definitely hearing the character's voice. I'm not a singer, but I know what I want to hear. I couldn't produce it myself, and certainly not on the level of the people we hire. But I can still tell them the thoughts behind it. And why I'm very big on prosody. I want the emphasis on the right syllable, not the emphasis on the wrong syllable. Yeah, and I want things that are questions in a lyric to sound like a question. And first of all, this composer here, who is the greatest living Broadway composer right now. Yeah.
Lies.
Even that.
Lies.
Part of the
she's
reason,
the greatest lyricist and book writer, and also clearly the greatest liar alive.
But part of your genius is that he can write these incredible sticky melodies, but they sound exactly the way they would be said if you were speaking them. So
well, you'll decide tonight if that's true.
Yeah, okay. All right, yeah. Tell me. If I'm wrong, come up and just be like, you're wrong. But I don't think you're going to. If I were a betting person, and I'm not because I worked for a bank, I would bet that you will agree with me on that.
You guys are amazing. I'm going to open it up to the audience for questions. We're going to have some folks come up. And,
by the way, shout out to everyone here in garb.
Yeah.
Yes, Your Majesty.
Raise your hand if you have a question, and someone will come to you with a microphone. So
yes,
we'll
sir,
start.
the king of the jesters.
Yes.
My name is Dan Bozarth. I have been a reenactor for roughly 40 years. I also own a Renaissance Fair in Lakeside called the Yuletide Medieval Festival.
God, you good
The
day,
question
sir.
I have for you guys
is
this is the third time that I've seen this.
You make my heart
and
leap. So.
I really wanted to be here when Dave invited me. I was like, yeah, I want to be here. How did you research the Okay, you have insights in that play that are only going to resonate with fair participants and owners. I mean, the first line, where'd all the money go? That's I know that personally. But did you participate? How did you do that research?
We have never been employed by a Ren Faire. We've been dragged up on stage by Ren Faire comedians at some of their acts. We have stayed after closing and done some party behavior with some people. We have close friends who have worked
we
fair.
do that well.
We have close friends who have dated people so thoroughly enmeshed in the Ren Faire that they wouldn't tell their girlfriend their real name, for example. So we've been and studied and absorbed and loved it. And we have spoken to people who've run Ren Fairs. There's a wonderful guy.
Gentleman who, so again, I want to stress that, first of all, thank you for that, because we are fans, and our most important, the note that's over all other notes in this show is we are not making fun of this. This is our joy, and we want it represented in a funny way and not in a snarky way.
And by the way, we think you should all, at some point, if you haven't, you should go to a
Go to
Ren
his
Faire.
fair.
Go to his fair, yeah. Because you will feel a weird vibe that you may not ever feel elsewhere, because a Ren Faire is more than Disneyland for Lord of the Rings geeks. It is a place where nerds are safe and sexy. and we feel very safe and sexy at Ren Fairs.
And that
So-
enthusiasm for it, when we say nerd, we don't just throw nerd around. We mean a person who has devoted themselves to something they're interested in, and that's what we did with fairs. We went up to people after their shows, like, we love your show, and like, can we buy you an ale? And made a lot of friendships too. And so those people also help us
There is
bring
also
the reality.
absolutely.
Sorry, it's weird to say the reality, right?
Yeah.
But bring the reality.
But there's also a lot of overlap with theater people, because a lot of the people who do Ren Fairs are also performers, actors. Some of them
Particularly
are,
in New York, the
Yeah.
upstate New York Fair, which is close enough to New York to employ actors in New York.
and you have the Venn diagram point, yes.
We say, like, the Venn diagram of people who would enjoy a Ren Fair and people who enjoy musical theater is just one circle.
So
yeah.
we've taken some of our observations and love of theater, the theater people we know, and we have applied it, and it does seem to translate. So
Because we're all just trying to.
yeah,
on a
but
show.
there will always, I know that there will always be someone who comes from a fair and comes to see us and says that's not accurate. To which we say, great, tell us about your fair. We want to know, because we will never be able to accurately capture every detail, because every fair is different. There's fairs in every state of the union. There's a fair every weekend of the year. If we could go to all of them, we would. And so, this is hopefully step one in getting it right and celebrating this world. And that took a long answer.
Oh,
Sorry,
no,
Vic.
I
Yeah,
love it.
but-
Love it, love it. We had another hand up here. This gentleman in the green. Yeah.
Yeah, I had a question in regard to when a show is running long and there's a song that you really like and they're saying it's going to be cut. How do you deal with that?
Did the producer send you? We've addressed that very question, hopefully incrementally, because you want your show to be done in a timely fashion, and we can tell you with great confidence that intermission aside, our show is 2 hours. That's it. So in theory, you are out the door if you want by 10:20 if the show starts at 8 p.m.
Depending on the bar line.
Yeah, it's true.
We have no control over unless we're in it.
But you're right. Like, audiences and you guys deserve a timely story, not too little, not too much. And so we think about that. So we have cut 6.5 minutes off of the running time since the first run through we did, because you'll shorten things. You don't need extra repeats of certain verses of certain choruses. Sometimes you can condense a transition. And so that is very much on our mind. We are hoping that the songs we have get to stay. We are hoping that the producers are going to be like, great, instead of cut that whole song, you don't need it. But that's happened to us in shows. And sometimes producers have said, that's the wrong person singing. You should have that person singing. And we will take that seriously and see if we can change it and make it better. Sometimes they say, you don't need that song at all. And maybe we'll be like, how dare you? But it depends. We will always take seriously when somebody says, when a producer especially, or a director says, oh, I have a problem with this moment. What we don't love so much is when a producer says, you know what you need here? Instead
have
of an
the
elephant,
solution.
it should be a kangaroo. And so descriptive things like it's too long, it's not working, we definitely love hearing those. But here's what you got to put there. It's not always as accurate.
We also, the advantage of being the book writers and the music writers is we also are looking, we're not fighting our corner, right? So if we love a song and Act 1 is too long, well, we can look for cuts in the book. And these things happen because we're with actors. So you overwrite. As a writer, you overwrite. You're like, I will tell you what, here's my speech about what this actor is emotionally feeling to the audience. And then you watch the actor do it, and you're like, it's so clear. They're an actor. This is literally what they do. It's very clear what they're emotionally feeling. I don't need any of these lines. And then it shortens. And also, we've been working on this show for 15 years. So there are a lot of songs that were in this show that you will not hear. And trust us, that's a good thing.
They weren't right.
They were fun songs, but they weren't right.
Yeah, I've never thought about that, which is that some writing teams are music-only person and book-only person. And if that is true, then music person wants to defend their music more than they want to promote the book. And so it can lead to fighting your corner, and hopefully we have no corner to retreat to. We're always
We
in
are
the same
cornered.
corner. We are
We are
cornered
our own
together.
corner.
Well, we only have a couple minutes left. It feels like all the questions are on this side. We'll start with the back, the very back.
Hello. my in-laws, their name is also Larry and Nell Lee. So
Really?
Oh my gosh.
Oh my God.
Kismet.
Bizarro world.
yes, it is.
Thank you.
My question
write musical
is,
theater.
knowing that you started in improv, how did it feel that your work, Mean Girls, was going to be featured in the biggest improv platform, SNL? And was that something you talked about with Tina Fey?
You should explain.
So Tina Fey, obviously many years as the head writer of SNL and on Weekend Update, and she also wrote Mean Girls. And one great thing about doing Mean Girls in New York was that she still had all these connections. So we would have little bits on SNL of Mean Girls. There was we got to have one of our songs on the Tonight Show. These are not things that are easy to do with theater, and so that was really, really fun. And then there were there was a fabulous video of the very inside baseball video of Tina saying that since we were losing one of our actors to another show, she was going to come in and do it, and her not being appropriate at all for the character. And it's super funny. And actually, early on, they did a sketch about kids who love theater and the theater that they see, and they're doing this theater, and they're like, "We were so good tonight. You all were so good tonight." And then you see clips from the show, and it's a high school show, and everything's going wrong, but in their eyes is that sense of, "We were perfect. We were perfect." And I always loved that because SNL is very, mean and snarky, but that was not mean about theater. That was the tone we'd want to strike here too. It's like, it's what you love, not how it goes. So they weren't making fun of like, oh, these deluded theater people. They were, well, I guess they were a little, but but it was more like, look at what carries you through a performance like that. So does that answer your question? Yeah.
One more question, and then how about yes?
We had. I would just like to know how you go about selecting the name of the play, of the show.
Mean Girls was kind of chosen for me, but
Well, Nell had this great idea for a show that we're working on now. It's set in 1754-ish, right before the Lisbon earthquake that destroyed most of Portugal. And it's about the incredibly huge difference between rich and poor. It was the richest nation in the history of the world up to that point, and in the slums of the Alfama of Lisbon lived the poorest people in the history of the world, down or up the hill from the richest. And so a great opportunity for a show with political resonance, but also because she's funny, amazing farce, and also because she grew up knowing Portugal and living there a bit of her life and speaking Portuguese. She said, well, we got to do about fado music, which is the saddest music in the history of the world. So the show's called Fado. And so we were lucky enough to do a workshop of that in London this past summer. And sometimes you want the word that is very pithy. Sometimes you want something that has tons of resonance. Legally Blonde was a great resonant title that was already attached to the movie. If we could create our own titles, we definitely want something that's going to stick in your brain. So hence Huzzah is one way.
Huzzah came because if you go, first of all, you will hear it a lot when you go to the Renaissance Fair.
If you tip the guy who sold you a turkey leg, they'll ring a bell and say, Huzzah for the giver, and everyone goes, Huzzah! And
so you have that sort of awkward moment where I'm going to tip and everybody's going to shout huzzah at me. But it's part of that culture, and it makes you feel like you're part of something. Because even if you didn't intend to come in costume or whatever, you can shout huzzah. And it will be right for almost any situation.
And there is something about the fair that makes you want to say huzzah early and often. And
at one point we thought every single song was just going to end with someone shouting huzzah.
We're almost there.
We're almost
about
there.
Half of the songs.
The
end
ballads
with
are tricky.
It
but
gives the perfect button.
It really does. Yeah.
Well, Larry and Nell, it's been such a pleasure. Thank you so much for speaking with me tonight.
Thank you so
and
much.
thank you to everybody for coming to tonight's Insight Seminar. Enjoy the show.
Huzzah!
Huzzah!